keywords, resilience, those types of words that we are utilizing within that, maybe that ties back to the values here when we start to look at resilience is on here, right? So that to me is a no-brainer because it's part of our portrait of a graduate. So I don't know if that makes sense. I can go through this and kind of narrow it down. Sure. Especially if our portrait of a graduate is our priority, right? And
yeah, I think some of this can spill onto that, but some of this stuff is a little bit soft. Portrait of graduate's going to have a heavy education component, but I think we agree, at least I agree that test score
what's going to happen because we think that we put something in place that
will say Culver's has a nice mint shake.
It does, I mean, yes.
Don't call it Shamrock.
Correct. I think it is definitely more normal occurring flavors in the world, if you will. I understand that McDonald's is absolutely nowhere near anything.
In my second grade class, we did this the most amazing like obstacle course in our classroom that my teacher set up, and it was all like St. Patty's Day themed, like walking with like a potato on your foot and stuff. But there got to be 2 winners, and the winners won Shamrock Shakes.
Ooh. Did you win? Is that
No.
why you don't like them?
That's what
Is that why you don't like them?
All I had to do is watch that thing melt and then look at your cup was left over.
Why would you ruin it,
Shamrock
Chris?
Shakes might have actually had real ingredients back
That's
then.
true, probably.
Is one Culver's done like a real Irish thing?
Well,
Potato.
potatoes are Irish,
Okay.
so I think it was just like part of the.
Second grade, you don't question those things.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, potato on my foot, that's cool. I think we should bring that back.
Actually, my daughter has asked why we don't have St. Patty's holiday parties.
Yes. This whole catch a leprechaun thing is
Oh.
not something I had growing up. And
Yeah, me neither.
yeah.
Should we start?
I was waiting for Chris to get back.
Not allowed.
Live?
Yes. Yes.
Everybody live knows that Chris is on the body.
I like that you repeated it.
That's not which one. Should have.
Let me know when you're ready, Chris.
I am ready, you tell me when.
Alright, let's call the order at 6:33.
Okay.
Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Proof of giving public notice.
Let's keep it.
Okay, all board members are in person, so we don't have to vote on virtual. And public comments is next, and our only public comment is Morgan.
Okay, so I just want to say thanks to Tiffany for your 3 years. I know you're coming up to the end. So thank you and enjoy the time with your family. Thank you. We're gonna get back. And then my only other thing was regarding the agenda item on the district's membership with WASB and the return on investment. I would like to urge the board to prioritize transparency by making the information and data behind what you guys are gonna utilize to make the evaluation fully accessible to the community, as these types of membership reviews are an important part of responsible fiscal management. And I think the community deserves to understand how these decisions are going to be evaluated. I also respectfully ask that you guys delay any decisions until the new board is sworn in, just so that they have a chance to review the information. And also I understand that Arrowhead is conducting a similar evaluation, but I don't believe we should feel pressure to follow them. We have our own unique needs and struggles and such within our district, so we need to make sure that we make decisions that fit best for our district. So I appreciate the board's commitment and hopefully we can have a good discussion on that.
Thank you. Okay, next item is the consent agenda.
I'd like to move to remove monthly voucher purchasing card report from the agenda.
Do you wanna put that at next month or right following the consent?
Okay, we should talk, we have a process to like review that stuff, and since we haven't had our finance meeting yet, I don't think we should be blessing it since we haven't reviewed it yet, so I just moved it to next month.
Okay,
That's under item D, right? Is in
Correct. Correct. Not suggesting there's something wrong with the report, just that
No.
it's gone through the proper
solid point.
review. I
So
think
we
it's good.
can vote on that afterwards, just to.
No, yes.
And then, I would I'm gonna move donations up just to talk about those. or do you
Yeah,
wanna
well,
talk
I'd like to
about
acknowledge the donations.
You can acknowledge them,
Go ahead, Rick.
either one of you.
Okay. Well, I think on behalf of both Chris and myself and the entire board, just very appreciative for the HLEF for the continued support of all of our teachers and staff and students, for the mirrors, for the cards and feminine hygiene products, as well as the basketball party for the 6th grade boys. Well earned, and really appreciate the work that you guys do and the support that you give our school.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
3 micro grants totaling $907, so amazing, thank you.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
I'll second.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just wait to get.
Chris, let me know when you're caught up.
I'm assuming that D was already removed and pulled out.
Okay, alright,
That's what-
okay.
And then who seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, consent agenda is approved with D removed. So now we need to vote on moving the monthly voucher and purchasing card report to next month.
Motion to move the monthly voucher and purchase card report to the April meeting.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, Tina, superintendent's report?
Yeah, so this is my annual plug for our summer splash. And I think we are starting to get a better understanding of the importance of revenue. And we talked a little bit about how are we gonna get more revenue? And this is one of the biggest areas that school districts can gain revenue. We did a phenomenal job last year just by making a couple of tweaks to an increase of $76,000 into our budget. That was fabulous. We worked really hard, and I've got to give big kudos to Dave and Heather, but really Maureen has done just an extraordinary job. If you've ever walked in the last 2 weeks, there's Post-it notes all over the conference room table. And I was just doing some really quick numbers. For the first time this year, our 3rd through 7th grade class offerings, there are 67 class offerings, hours. So we gotta really get those 3rd through 7th graders in there. We've got everything from leadership opportunities to babysitting to CAD to exploring underwater, and we just have a lot of different things. Same thing with our 4K through 2nd grade. The important piece of this is we changed our schedule last year to increase our attendance. Now remember, we had 8 weeks before and we increased our revenue by $76,000. So think about that math problem for a minute. But we need people, we need kiddos, and we need them to come. Oftentimes, if we have a scheduled class, and let's call it Legos, and we have 15 students signed up for Legos, by the time that class is over, those 2 weeks are over, our attendance is down to 10. Well, it's important that we understand that if we're not there every single day for Lego class, the district doesn't receive the revenue because it's based on FTEs. So really, really try, if you're gonna sign up, it's gonna come out here in the next week or two. So if you're gonna sign up, please ensure that your students can be there at all sessions that they sign up for, because we are going to cap the classes. We also are going to not run classes if there aren't at least 10 students in each class. The why on that is because it costs us to bring teachers in to teach the classes. If it doesn't become a cost-effective balance, then it doesn't make sense for us to run those classes. So I'm very excited about the great work and the things that are going on with that, and I'm super excited to see how we do this year with our revenue. So that's what I have.
Transportation update?
Want me to go?
Yes.
Great. You
wanna just, it's on you.
I just think that it's important for us to, again, continue to have these conversations. We had a situation occur, I don't know, a week and a half ago where there was a arraignment hearing and there were some bus drivers saying that they had seen the video, and that caused some pretty intense emotions around the community. I want the community at large to know that the district immediately contacted Dousman. Dousman unequivocally said, we have not shared that. It is absolutely categorically untrue that anybody else outside of the people that sat in that room that day from the district perspective or the police have seen that video. So I asked them to write a letter, they did. We called a meeting for our families that were impacted by this directly. Board support was there, I had Chris and Matt were able to be there that night to kind of just show support to our families and then kind of talk through what are we gonna do next and how do we make this right. We knew that was it yesterday morning at 9 a.m. there was a pre-trial or a pre-hearing. The defendant, would he be the defendant? Whatever, the person in question, he waived his rights to a pre-hearing, which was really tough for our families, but the DA pulled our families into conference to kind of just have conversation and just say this is how this is going to work. We can expect a trial probably 9 to 12 months out. But I did want the community at large to know that at no point was that video shared. I know that's out there, but it was not. The other piece that we're doing, we just found out we were supposed to have a meeting. Dousman's working with all of us, all of the districts, because as you know, our transportation contract is with a consortium, so it's all the districts working together. Then that group has a contract with Dousman. And that contract was like 5 years long. It's a long contract and we can't do anything with that. However, we have everybody on board and meeting about making some changes, looking at some alterations to the plan. And then we've also worked with Dousman to have them they have an implementation, it's called optimization for bus routes, which they've never used before. They've always kind of done everything by hand. And so now they have this program that they can plug in all of our kiddos in the routes where they live and hopefully come up with a better plan. So we'll see what ends up happening. We are working to make some adjustments. Once we have a better understanding of the cans and can-nots, you can expect a survey to come out in the next week or two to try to get the community's understanding of what their wants and needs are in regard to transportation. I think our greatest concern, and guys hop in, is safety. We've got some safety issues, we've got some safety concerns, particularly with this shuttling thing that we have going on. And we just wanna make sure that we take care of what we need to as far as our students are concerned. So once we have a little bit better idea of that, we'll get the survey out, which we actually thought would be last week, but because of some changes, we had to hold on it, but we're hoping to get that out. And then once the surveys come back, we'll synthesize that data, put it all together, and then we will host a forum where the board and ourselves will be there to kind of talk about the outcomes and then start planning forward for next year. So expect some changes for next year, we just don't know what yet. So that's our update.
Amy, discussion on monthly finance report.
Yes, so as Matt said, typically I've reviewed this with finance, so since we didn't get to do that yet, I did add it to board docs yesterday, so if you wanna pull that up. Right now, between all of the accounts, we do have just over $9 million in those accounts. Fund 10 activity for the month of February, we did receive our second tax deposit that totaled almost $2.2 million. Interest on our savings account, we're still earning a lot, but it continues to drop. It's at 4.55% now. But we did earn interest of over just $19,000. The rest of the funds received are tied to school fees, extracurricular activities and such. Again, expenses at this time appear to be on schedule. What I will be doing for the last quarter is trying to project out based on like a 5-year trend. So I will be reviewing that with finance beforehand, just so that we can see that we truly are on target. But that will be a new report, so I'll have them review that first. Fund 27 for special education. We did receive another special ed aid payment of over $100,000. We did have some Medicaid reimbursement come in for over $20,000, and then our interfund transfer from Fund 10 to Fund 27 was about $117,000 this month. Otherwise, district expenses look good and on budget for special education as well. Fund 46 is that capital improvement. We're just earning interest on the money in the account, and that was about $5,700. Fund 50 is our food service. We did receive some of our federal funds. Breakfast aid was about $1,600 and lunch aid was about $14,000. The rest of the revenue is tied to food deposits for students and families. And then Fund 80 is our community service, which is the Lakeside Academy. So all of that is tied directly to her revenue and expenses, and she's almost quite on target, but yes, with that rate increase that went into January, we expect to see that change and come down a little bit as well. Are there any initial questions on the financials at this time?
Thank you.
Thank you. Alright, moving on to new business. Discussion and decision on 2025 summer band camp agreement.
Just so you know, in case you're new to the board this year, summer band camp is part of our summer school program. It is a shared service, so that is why it is a 6603 agreement. With the feeder schools in this area, we do get credit for those students towards summer school, and it's just a great opportunity for students in general. But this agreement does need to be reviewed and approved by the board.
Does anyone have any questions?
Same standard agreement as we've done usually.
I didn't see any changes too much from last year, so I would motion to approve the summer band camp 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the summer band camp 2025 agreement is approved. Chris, let me know when.
Who seconded that?
Niels.
No.
No,
Matt.
Matt, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to the WASB review, discussion, and possible decision on value return on investment of Wisconsin Association of School Boards.
So I'll lead it off. I've had a lot of experience with it over the last couple of years, and also served on the Policy and Resolutions Committee. And I'd be really curious to see what Matt and Chris, your experience has been over the last year, because you're the first year. When I first got on the board, I took anything and everything I could from WASB, everything. When I first came on here, there wasn't a binder, there was no onboarding for us. It was welcome to the team. Here we go. So I took that upon myself for self-education, and I was taking anything and everything that I could. And you fast forward to today, and I've still continued to go to fall conferences, regional gatherings, legislative and law updates up north, the state conference, and attended multiple training sessions, and then of course on the Policy and Resolutions Committee and all the work that was done there. And I found that after the first, 6 or 8 months, the quality of the education really became diminished. As a new board member who knows nothing, I found it to be very helpful in those first 6 to 8-ish months. And then after, it kind of goes down, where it's not really providing super helpful information that's not available through other organizations, not available through self-teaching or other avenues. When I went to the state convention, I tried to pick presentations that were relevant to our district. And I made the mistake of not paying attention to who was giving the presentation. And as an example, you would have at times other districts providing presentations on a topic of student achievement, as an example, and they have terrible poor achievement. And they're the ones giving the presentation. I heard some financial ones that I attended, and Amy Holly could have taught it much better than what I was giving. So I'm disappointed in the quality after you get to a certain point in the information that's provided at those. My experience at a lot of the regional gatherings, those are great networking events to meet other districts, talk with people, and even interact with the WASB staff. You're not getting much out of it. It's a networking event more than anything, and word presentations, but not a lot of useful information. Now I fast forward into the Policy and Resolution Committee, which again takes a significant amount of time for someone as a volunteer, a significant amount. 3 different times driving out of the area. It takes whole days, sometimes overnight. So it's a lot of work on our part. And I struggled with the way that it's managed. So as an example, the first meeting we went to, I think it was in Stevens Point. There's a group of, I forget how many, 30-ish people that are on this committee, representatives from different districts and regions throughout the state. And they bring the resolutions that are submitted from districts to this group, and then they talk through it and decide which ones go forward and which ones don't. And there's 3 criteria. I'm sorry, it's long-winded, but you need to understand the background. There are 3 criteria that are used to determine whether or not these resolutions move forward to the General Assembly at the state convention, and that's, are they timely? Are they pertinent, relevant? And are they worthy of discussion? And unfortunately, as we broke into, I think it was 5 groups, so that there would be an odd number of votes of moving forward or not. And the executive staff, including the president of the meeting, were moving around the groups throughout our conversations, interjecting themselves into it, and helping navigate those groups to a certain position. So it was influencing the outcome of whether or not resolutions were getting carried forward. And I didn't like that. That's not the role. The role is of these representatives are the ones that should be doing it. And then you take as an example, fast forward now to the state convention. Again, this is where the resolutions then are voted on by the membership to whether or not they get accepted to be part of the WASB resolution packet for the legislators that they lobby for. And one of the policy resolutions that was turned in that was, again, subtly encouraged not to be brought forward was the Protect Women and Girl Sports, as submitted by New London. And that got torpedoed at the Policy and Resolution Committee. And it's interesting because if you look at the criteria, is it pertinent? Is it timely? And is it worthy of debate? I would argue that it's probably one of the most debated things in all of 2024, everywhere. And in the first week of the new administration, it was. But it got killed and not allowed to bring it forward. At the state convention then, when the conference votes on it, they shut it down somewhat quickly, and it was not even allowed to be brought to the floor for discussion. So when I'm looking at it, I'm struggling because I'm seeing a particular mindset driving the membership in a particular direction. We don't use their policy program any longer. We use Neola. It's much cleaner, much more helpful. We don't utilize their legal services. And we don't I don't personally see a lot of return on many of the educational things. So when you look at budgets, when you look at costs, and then you also look at some of the resolutions that did go through are against things that we voted to go a certain direction, which means those initiatives are going against the will and the thought of the people of our community. So we're paying and supporting a mindset and initiatives that go against our community. So when I'm looking at all of that, and I'm adding it all together, and I talked with Amy at one point, I think our membership fee was in the 4,000s, somewhere in there, and the total spend for trainings, reimbursements, travel, programs was around 15,000, give or take, I believe. Is that still accurate, Amy?
That's what I was just trying to pull up real quick.
I'm using round numbers because I don't remember the exact.
I think it depends on the number of things that people attend, but it could, it would be a range,
Yeah.
probably between 10 and 15,000.
So from my perspective, the value of it, I think it's helpful for a new board member, but now that we have our own onboarding program, and there are more agencies, there are more groups out there now providing good education. School Boards for Academic Excellence, the 1848 Project, others, there's a lot of other information out there. And so when I see the history of what's been happening with WAS, the quality of the education, and then the insertion of driving policy in a particular direction, I just don't see the value when it's counter for our community. Long-winded, sorry, a lot of history. But Matt and Chris, I'd be really interested if you took some of the different training seminars, if you felt that those were overly helpful.
I did some of this initial, like, hey, you're a new school member, attend this thing. I thought it was helpful, but it wasn't earth shattering in there that I learned.
I would say networking wise, it was good the initial, because you sat down with a couple boards in the area. Although I messed up the sections and I got sent to one that was a little further away. And so that, I think initially there's some steps that were helpful. There's some lunch lines here or there that have been informational, but I wouldn't say that it had any more information than anybody else that was out there. I was getting the same thing from all the other ones that were out there. Is it an annual that we pay?
Mm-hmm.
And is that coming up soon, or is that something that we paid already?
It is typically, yes, it's for the school year, so it would be coming up in July.
In July, so if we made this decision, and the new board members come in and we have it to look at it as well, before that time frame. I thought it was adequate with all the ones that were out there. I didn't think anything was more or less than what was seen anywhere else.
My fear in waiting for a new board is there's more than 50% of our board is up. And so it could have a very different outlook. And you may not, right now we have 4 members that have been here for a while and at least have had enough experience with it. No offense meant to that, Niels, you just only been here a month. So you haven't had much of an opportunity unless you've taken any of the trainings or not yet.
No.
So there could be a different board makeup at that time. And then by then they're making a decision on something they have no experience with, potentially. Again, I'm not projecting anything with the election, I'm just saying that more than 50% of our board is up.
Well, I mean, I think we should probably wait till the new board, but I guess my bigger question is, what is that, if it's a $4,000 membership, what does that get us? I mean,
I think it gets you access, they do some online.
there's a lot of stuff online, so if I couldn't access all the, I wanted to go, you find a bunch of stuff online.
Right.
I couldn't access that if we dropped out. And then we obviously couldn't go to the convention or other meetings, is that pretty much it?
I believe so, Tina asked me that as well, and I'm not sure,
I
some groups
think
have a
they
member,
can still go
you
to
can
the
still go,
meetings,
yeah.
it's just a different
You can still
membership,
vote.
not
Still
membership.
pay, not really. Look, I didn't like the, I mean, these are those policies we went through at one meeting, like 15 minutes, right? I mean, I didn't really appreciate that. I think if you're gonna advocate for something, you should advocate for like 2 or 3 things. Like if there was stuff on there that was kind of just so inane that, you know, all the lawmakers could say, yeah, I passed like 5 things they brought to us, and it's like meant nothing, right? It's been like 5 minor things, so, you know, I would prefer a more concentrated portfolio of what you take to advocate for, but we, you know, the Hartland School Board's not gonna dictate the entire WASB to narrow that down to stuff that we really want. I think any policy they advocate for, there will be people in the community that are for and against it, so I wouldn't say that, you know, they're routinely advocating for or against policies that are directly in contrast to us, but I don't, you know, how effective are they with this advocacy?
Question.
I mean, they've been, I mean, I know this special education funding is my big thing, and I know that's been on the talking point for a lot of long years, and we're the worst in the nation in what we fund. I mean, and that seems like a simple one that they could push for that's gotten no traction. So look, I don't have a strong opinion for or against. I would suggest, as you said, with half the board, well, could be 3 new members come May meeting, let those folks figure it out, whether it's some of us or not, would be my suggestion.
I also think you're very familiar with WASB, you're very, very involved. And I think you bring up some really good points when it comes to how effective is the representation. I think it's worth the board, I mean, I saw it on the agenda, I didn't know what your feelings were on it, and that's what the board meetings are for. I think it's worth taking those feelings and going back and looking at WASB and challenging WASB, say, what do you bring to the table? Maybe there's something that we're not taking advantage of that they do provide. I don't know as a board member, and that's where I feel like, you know, especially with the new board coming on, you know, I don't think it takes much to, you know, take that same community input and be like, hey, is this where we want to, is there a better organization that can represent us better? You brought up a couple of other ones. I think we should, as a board, be a part of some kind of organization, so we're not just going at it alone, but if it's not WASB, you know, what is the right one? I mean, you mentioned you mentioned Will. I'm sure some community members would feel about Will as you might feel about WASB, right? So what are the alternatives out there, and what benefit do they give us to advocate for funding, right? I remember, and I think it was 3 months ago, you got up there and we're like, hey, does anybody realize how little we get reimbursed for this stuff? Like, and then at the feeder school, it's like if we're all together talking about legislatures together as all districts, we have so much more powerful voice. Like focusing on that, I feel like, and what the alternative is versus just, let's just exit now. I think there's a little more deliberation, and I at least would like to learn more about it, to see what there is a possibility of missing before making a decision that, you know, our dues are in July. Is this a decision that has to happen at this board meeting?
Can I ask one more question? I mean, do you guys as administrators, is there any benefit to you of us being part of WASB?
That's a good question.
Is there stuff you get from it that we haven't talked about here, that like, oh, if you cut us off of this is really gonna screw us because we use them for this and that?
No.
I
I
think
think in the
policy,
past,
right?
it was probably more tied to, the policy. At this time, there's nothing that I personally use it for. I might jump in on a capital chat, but those are online, and I'm sure I can still do that, but, otherwise, no.
Yeah, I think I can speak to the superintendent piece of it, because I think that they take, we have standards, right? We have standards in the state of Wisconsin, and WASB takes the 12 standards and tries to, I don't even know the name of it, cause I've never been evaluated under that process, but
There's a lot of
it is pretty antiquated, right? I mean, it's a pretty old system, it's not relevant to it's meant to be, districts use it, DAPE, that's what it's called, the DAPEs. Use it universally, and we're not all the same, so you can't take that, right, and measure it with that. We don't do that here, we haven't done that since I've been here, we don't use it for the policies. I do go to the convention, but I'm also a member of the WASDA, which is the Wisconsin Association of School District Administrators, and they partner with WASB, so I would still get the discounts going to, and there's only two that I go to that I love to go to, and the rest I don't. Is the law, I love that law conference in July, and then I also enjoy the convention. So, I've tried a couple of the other ones, but I don't mean anything that's really effective for our district. It's really personal contacts and networking stuff that, if I'm gonna network, I need to network down here, not up in, like, different varying places. So otherwise, yeah, we don't really use WASB for much from the district office perspective.
Were there alternatives that you've seen before to WASB that you saw might be more effective?
I just know that my previous experience was really reliant on the club memberships of Wisconsin Association for School District Administrators, and we would bring John Bales in. John Bales is the executive director of that organization, and so particularly in my previous district, I know we're probably getting done with me saying that, but my time on that is like starting to wear out, but he would come and do work with the board. Even the people that we've had, Barb Sharma came and did a governance session, that was not through WASB, that was through WASDA. I don't have experience with any other organizations except for those two.
Okay.
And I don't think you need to have memberships for other organizations. I think,
Some of them you don't know.
yeah.
No, I mean, are you saying,
I
you're
don't,
saying we don't need to be joined to any organization?
right, that's
Yeah,
what I'm
right.
saying, when we need
Right.
something, we can go resource it out, and I know my experience with WASP has not been great.
Mhm.
The trainings I've gone to were not helpful in the least bit. In fact, I walked out of there thinking, my God, I just wasted 3 hours of my life. I got nothing out of that. Sat through one in Green Lake, I don't know, one fall, and it was just talking in circles. There was nothing productive that came out of it. And there was not real life discussion about root causes of things or innovative thinking or ways to try to combat these like the birth rate thing or the enrollment decline. It was just like talking in circles, talking. So the seminars I went to during the convention, I was really excited about one. I took one specifically on superintendent evaluation. I walked out of there being like, this is crazy, this is so complicated. We can totally do something so much simpler. And we do not, I think I have called WASB 2 or 3 times in my 3 years for 5-minute legal advice. So we don't need it for that. I know there's schools that use them a lot more. And to be honest, when I have logged in to look at stuff, for instance, I was logging in to see if they had a superintendent format or example for evaluation that I could work off of. Nope, I was gonna have to pay. I was gonna have to pay a couple $1,000s for it. So even with having that membership and being able to log in, you're still blocked out of stuff. It's kind of like a nickel and dime you for everything that you want. So yeah, I don't think it's that big a deal. I think that we can still access certain things from WASB, and people can still go to the trainings if they want to, and we don't need to lock ourselves into one thing. I mean, I'm really interested in the school boards for excellence stuff right now. I think they're kind of on the cutting edge of really trying to think outside of the box to fix some of these bigger problems. So that's
I guess
my take.
I have a question, so the subject of the agenda is discussion and possible decision on the value and return on investment of WASB. Was the intent of this a discussion and decision for the district to leave WASB? Because if it was, I feel like it might be an unclear agenda to the public if we worded it this way. And can we, as the board, make a decision to leave WASB with that as the subject of the agenda item?
It's already paid for the year, right? Yeah, so this would be just more of a decision not to renew.
Look, I haven't heard anything that suggests we're getting a lot out of our 5 to 15 grand.
Agreed.
I just don't think we need to rush tonight to kick ourselves out of it. I'd suggest pushing this to May or June meeting when you got a new board on and deciding that. That'd be my suggestion.
Does it automatically renew?
It does not. So
So we have to make a decision as a board, the next board, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, we'll receive an invoice in June, so we can cancel at that time, or notify them at that time.
I don't think it's a good idea to wait. I could say wait till next month if there's some additional research or phone calls or something that needed to be uncovered, okay? But I think it would be a mistake to wait and ask a potential new board to make that decision.
Well, but a potential new board could just come in and say, wow, guess what? It's May, it's June, here we are. We wanna reverse course and we wanna stay in.
They could, but we at least have, the four of us have direct experience with it. Some more than others, but we have at least firsthand knowledge, experience, good or bad, some of both, I think. And I think it's more within our responsibility to make the decision for it.
Yeah, I guess I'm confused. If we get an invoice and doesn't automatically review, the board's gonna make a decision anyways. It seems like this vote doesn't really mean anything. Am I missing something?
We're not voting anything to the emotions.
What? Right, but you see what I'm saying, Chris? I wanna do more research, but at the same time, I feel like whatever we vote doesn't really matter, because the next board can decide to pay the invoice, like, it's nothing that's binding, right? It's just more of,
It could unless, I'm trying to think, even if it was a motion to not do it for the school year, any board could reverse course beforehand.
yeah,
Could.
and no matter what, they would have to make a decision when it comes anyways, if they wanna pay it or not, or, you should.
It would be canceled by that. That decision would be made. If this was talked that way, then that wouldn't come then, it would just be.
It would be done,
Yeah.
there'd be no invoice that comes.
Yeah.
Can I make a
Oh,
motion?
okay. Yeah, go
Can I
ahead.
make a motion?
Yeah, I'm done discussing it. I'm clear. Thanks, Chris.
Hang
I'll
on.
make I'm making a motion to make no decision on our WASB membership.
I'll second that.
Okay.
So let me just repeat it to make sure I got it right. I shall have a motion to make no decision on our last week membership.
Correct.
Can you give us your second?
Discussion?
I think it's really vague. I think we're not making any decision at all, anywhere, anytime, there's no time frame with it. That's just the way it was written.
I didn't hear what you said, I'm sorry.
I said something really vague, that the motion was just, well, we're not gonna talk about it anymore.
Then don't vote for it, make your own motion, it's fine.
No, this is the discussion portion, right? So this is
Yeah.
where I'm just saying, I think it's very
Yeah,
vague, that is, there was no like, we're gonna put this off until then, it's just, hey, we're not gonna discuss this anymore. So I just wanted to make that.
it sounds like we're not getting much out of it, but I guess I didn't do the homework I should have done coming into the decision to be informed. So that's why I think just making no decision, I mean, is an appropriate motion.
Any more discussion? Great, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All not in favor?
No.
Nine. Nay. Combine the two. Okay, motion fails. Is there another motion on the table?
Madam President, I'd like to motion to not renew our WASB membership for the upcoming year.
Second that.
Discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Not in favor?
Nay.
Okay, motion passes to not re-up our WAS membership.
Chris, you second?
Let me know when you're ready to move on.
I'm here.
You're good?
I was
Okay.
taking first.
So we're moving on to the board president report. I just wanted to kind of give everyone a recap on how our all feeder school board meeting went last week at Arrowhead. Chris, myself, and Kim invited all the school boards that are feeder schools into Arrowhead to come together to discuss multiple things, mainly just to start communication, start collaboration, to try to break down that competition wall that we have, and be able to start benefiting one another. So a large part of the meeting was just kind of going around and everyone talking about their school and getting to know what each school is about, and what they've been focusing on. There was talk on shared services, a lot of talk on curriculum alignment. You guys were pretty much all here when we were talking about our strategic plan, but really making sure that when every kid from every feeder school gets into Arrowhead as a freshman, that their staff is not able to identify what feeder school they've come from, and what that looks like in order to get that aligned. And then obviously lots of time was spent on unification, consolidating the district, obviously, or consolidating all the feeder schools into one district with Arrowhead. That was contentious, I guess we could say. Definitely some very strong opinions from certain schools against it. I think there's been some presentations on it in the past that I have not been a part of. I would really like to be able to be a part of one to have a better understanding. The process takes 5 to 7 years is our understanding. So there's lots of moving pieces. I think one of the concerns specifically from Merton's school district was that people are very happy with their property taxes, and there's gonna, be losers and winners when you consolidate, and that we're just not gonna be able to get all the municipalities to vote on it and agree on it. I completely disagree with that. I think this is something that the community probably doesn't know about or understand at all, or how it could benefit them. And I don't think property taxes are that drastically different where people would be in that much of an uproar over it. However, I do think it's worth continued talks and getting the board members educated on it, and then being able to educate the community on it. So I think we plan on having additional group meetings and even potentially breaking off into like subcommittees for different topics. So it was a start. I will say we were the only board that had all our board members there, so that was awesome. And then I'm gonna just let you guys speak if you wanna say anything of how you felt it went.
Yeah, I was a little frustrated on that consolidation discussion. Yes, idea that the property tax difference seems a little silly. I mean, it's great if you don't have any building issues, right? But if we have to do a big building repair, you're also distributing that across a greater thing. You maybe better utilize your facilities and things of that nature. So, and I agree with Tiffany. I mean, I don't think I've lived here for 10 years and I've never heard a discussion on what's it look like? How could that work? What really happened? So I don't know that anybody's super informed on what that could look like, and are there savings? Are there better efficiencies of ways we could do things? You know, one comment I made away from the consolidation thing is there's certainly, and Tina or somebody said this earlier when we were in the strategic planning, that, you know, there was comments made that Arrowhead could guess which school certain students had come from if they're good in one subject or another, or you can kind of tell the Hartland kids are good at this and the Martin kids are good at this and they struggle at this. And that coordination, you know, so there was talk that, you know, there needs to be better coordination between Arrowhead and the feeder schools, but that structure is just so challenging because the curriculum director, we talked about strategic planning, is coming here to meet with us. That's great, but you know, if, I don't know if it's a he or she, that curriculum director, she needs to do that. She needs to have 7 meetings to actually have that happen, to influence next freshman class and then have that happen. And so I think it's good that we continue as school boards to meet together, but you know, what happens in the classroom has to happen with the superintendents meeting with each other and the curriculum directors and special ed directors and figuring out ways we can, you know, if consolidation is really something that just can't happen, it's just too hard or people aren't gonna vote for it, that's fine, but there's certainly gonna be better ways that we can share staff. And we do some of that with like our physical therapists and some other specialists and things of that nature, but there's certainly more opportunities to do some of that. But it's very cumbersome to do that in this, you know, it's basically somebody's gotta hire that person and then loan them out to somebody else and you figure out what that cost sharing split is, and is it 50-50, but we know we really need them 70% of the time because we got more people in that issue. And you know, it's just, I think there's a lot of inefficiencies with how this area is set up. And we've talked about the competition amongst the schools, and competition is certainly healthy, but you know, you can keep those community schools as kind of labs to, you know, every teacher is going to teach something different. You're going to find people that come out of things better. And so, you know, I'd rather have our district sharing best practices than rather think they got the secret recipe for something that keeps them better so they can steal our students, right? I mean, there was some people talking about that. Thank you for sending us all your students, because it's like, well, okay, you know, so.
We won't need them.
You guys have anything?
I would also say it was a good to have those conversations because there's open to have future conversations regarding that and sharing, and hopefully that feeds down a little bit too. So sometimes in those superintendent meetings too, there's a lot of competition, there's a lot of sharing. So I think just being okay that at top they're talking, maybe we can start talking down below too. So I was certainly encouraged there, and I heard some good feedback regarding how do we continue to push this downward, not just up at top. So sharing and conversations happen.
I think it was good to hear the curriculum discussion, but also, I didn't hear anybody reject consolidation outright. I think everybody was, it's worth a discussion, it's worth investigating, at least there wasn't no work, at least that was my take.
At least 2 schools are pretty hopeful.
But the other piece of that is the parallel path, right? So, I mean, consolidation takes everybody to get on board, but at the same time, that doesn't mean we throw all our eggs in that basket. And I think there was a commitment from every district to work closer together when it comes to sharing contractors, to sharing, you know, whatever it is, building plans, safety practices, all that kind of stuff, because we're all in the same transportation district. I'm assuming we're in a consortium for food service as well? No? Maybe there's an opportunity for a consortium for food service, right? There's so many different areas of opportunity for us to get together with the other feeder districts, and that only happens if the boards are talking to each other, right? We can't just rely on Tina to talk to other superintendents, right? The boards have to own that as well if we're actually gonna be serious about cooperation. And that, I feel like, can drive and influence decisions that we may want on consolidation, right? But you can't just expect to go to one meeting and say everybody's gonna be on the same page. But the collaboration on all those other things can then drive to a solution like that. And I thought that was, again, big thank you to Tiffany for orchestrating it, and Chris and Kim.
Kim.
Yeah, I mean, there have been board members there for how many years? Like double digits, 15, whatever.
Yeah.
And it had never happened before. Right? And you guys set it up. So, I mean, that's leadership, so thank you.
Yeah, I was very happy that at least they were all in the same room at the same time. And one really good thing that came out of it was, and you guys were all there, so you can tell me if I'm wrong, but Tiffany did an amazing job at positioning our district as exceptional. Each school got an opportunity to share their successes and their challenges. And the board president of each, or the representative from each school, gave that report. And Tiffany did an amazing job of really sharing all the wonderful things that we do, what our administration does, what our business office does, and how healthy our finances are, and how we've been very fiscally responsible with our village. And it was good. And it was good to see too that many of the other districts not all of them, were performing well also. It was nice to see some have some financial celebrations. They were coming out of debt on the very next day for the first time. So it was a very healthy meeting, and I hope that the tone can stay down a little on the consolidation talk. I agree with you, Niels, that if we walk before we run, we're more likely to run together. And if we push hard for that consolidation right out of the gate, I think the defenses will come up and we're gonna meet with a lot of opposition. I think the sharing of the service, the curriculum, the nice thing was everybody kind of agreed on that approach for the curriculum and driving students together and at the same level at Arrowhead. So that was very encouraging, because then that fosters more board directive to their administrations to talk to one another about how we can do that together.
And I also think, and I don't know if I should say this, but I think with the consolidation, there may be some natural steps that happen here in the next few years with some of these schools going to referendum. And if they don't get their referendums passed, what does that mean for those schools? So maybe there's mini consolidations working up to the bigger consolidation.
And I spoke with Jeff Gross about it this morning. Tina, maybe you know and you can confirm if I'm correct here, but if there was ever a district-wide consolidation, there would need to be 8 referendums, all simultaneous, that would have to get accepted from all 7 districts plus Arrowhead to agree to a master consolidation. Is that correct?
I know you
I think so. So that's what Jeff Gross and I talked about this morning. And so for that to happen, that would take a lot of work. I mean, we're not talking overnight. And so I agree with you, Timmy. I think there might be more micro consolidation opportunities that could eventually lead to that at some point. I think it might just naturally happen from more cooperation and conversation together. But it was a very good meeting. I was very happy with it. And happy that everybody sounded like they want to come back and continue the conversation. So that's very good for our entire community. Very good.
Yeah, nice to put faces to names. Must be like, you didn't call me back. Now you're right. So good stuff there. And then most of you guys were sitting here for the strategic plan, but I just kind of wanted, for those who are watching and who haven't been to workshops, to kind of give a little recap on where we're at with the strategic plan. So we have 5 official pillars: fiscally forward, wellness, safety, community engagement, and student success. So these are our 5 pillars, which are our core areas of focus for the next 1 to 3 years. We've got program efficiencies and growth and revenue generating resources as big subtitles under fiscally forward. We've got climate and culture and health and nutrition under wellness. We've got transportation, safety plan, review building and improvements, and cybersecurity under safety. Communication, marketing, collaboration, and partnerships under community engagement. And portrait of a graduate, student services, academic curriculum, and electives and creative programming under student successes. So with that, we have goals that we're going to be trying to achieve. And the admin is working towards creating benchmarks and kind of a roadmap as to how those goals will be achieved. They're getting worked into time frames, whether it be 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. Some of them will build upon one another. So at this last workshop tonight, we, as a board, were prioritizing kind of what needs to happen first. We are working on a dashboard that's going to be created that will be accessible to community members and parents online to see just exactly what those goals are under each pillar, as well as be able to check in weekly for follow-up on where we are with achieving those things. I think at the start of this process, we as a board felt it was really important to make something that was achievable, but also fluid, and that we weren't gonna get super locked in to something if circumstances changed within the school, and there's room to edit and change, basically. So if you guys have anything to add?
No.
Well done.
Okay, so that's kind of where we're at. Next month, we're going to be, are we gonna have a workshop by next month, you think?
Probably.
So we'll have a workshop for next month, and we'll probably be discussing more specific benchmarks. Okay. So that's it on the strategic plan. Moving on to future board or committee action discussion items. Does anyone have anything for future board items? Okay. PPC, you guys look like you're scheduled for March 6th at 4 p.m. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome. Finance looks like you guys are scheduled for March 14th at 9 a.m.
Correct.
Correct? Okay. And then Monday, April 28th, 5:45 will be our strategic plan workshop, and then meeting to follow at 6:30.
Can I ask for a change to that date? Sure. Moving that to April 22nd, Tuesday, April 22nd. It has a lot to do with swearing in, but it also is personal. I'm hoping to not be in the country that next week, per our vote tonight as to whether or not we can move that to that Tuesday. So if we can have it on April 22nd, and do the swearing in on that date because it's prior to the 25th, and then the seating of the board will happen in May. It's the same timeline we followed last year. I think it makes sense for us to stay consistent.
I think that
I
date
have no
works,
objections.
date works for me, but just logistically, what's that mean at the April meeting? Will new board members participate?
No, they get sworn in, just so think back when you came on, we swore you in, and then the reseating, happens in May, the new seats, so that
So the 5 of us will be the board members at the
for
April
that
meeting.
April meeting.
And for the workshop too.
Correct.
Should we also schedule the April PPC
Yes,
meeting?
yes.
Sure.
I was thinking April 10th at 4, just to stay again consistent with that
Um,
timeframe.
do I need a motion for the board meeting? We can just change, okay, we can just change that, okay. I'm sorry, Tina, what were you saying?
April 10th at 4, does that work for you guys to do the PPC meeting?
Sure does.
Chris,
That week I'm unavailable.
you are, okay.
I could do the week of the 14th.
17th is fine for me at 4.
That work for you still?
Isn't that Easter? No, Easter's
Thursday.
21st.
I'm talking about Thursday.
Yeah, I'm gonna look here, just sorry, it was in March as well. Yeah, I could do 4 o'clock on the 17th.
Otherwise, if that's too close to Easter, if you need to move it to Wednesday, I can, oh no, you got it.
And volleyball.
I'm gonna come to one of those D&D meetings.
Did you come to the volleyball game?
Until I blow out my Achilles, man.
No, it's.
Oh, you're just watching.
No, I'm coaching our 6th grade boys.
I'm like, I'm not playing.
We got a proposal to keep
put him
that
in.
out of high school, or middle school sports there.
So yeah, the 17th.
Thursday the 17th, 4 p.m.
Finance. For April.
I always like Friday if you can, Chris, I could do the 11th or 18th.
18th is Good Friday,
Oh, is it?
no school that day.
Is it 11th? I'm generally flexible, so tell me what works for you. I like that 9 a.m. slot,
I guess
whatever.
you're the 18th.
Not if you guys are, school's closed, you're probably not here.
Yeah, you're right. So maybe the 11th then?
April 11th work for? Let's do that.
What day of the week is April 11th?
Friday.
Friday.
9 AM?
And the board meeting got moved to the, just so I'm.
The 22nd.
22nd.
Tuesday the 22nd.
Did you guys feel like 45 minutes was tight? Would you like to take that to 5:30?
I think so. Because this is,
Yeah, I think
this
they'll
would
probably
be
more
pretty much our
detailed
final
benchmark
one.
wise talking.
This is pretty much the final one then, and then we would take action in the meeting
That's
to
correct.
adopt, correct?
That is correct.
So if that's the case, then I'd wanna give us at least an hour to
Yeah.
make sure that we've got everything dialed in, so that at the meeting then, we can take action and adopt.
Okay.
That'd be great.
So that would be the workshop at 5:30.
Yes.
Tiffany goes off into the sunset with an approved strategic plan.
That's right.
Okay. Okay. That concludes, well, we need to go into executive session now.
Yes, Madam President, I'd like to motion to move into closed session at. That's 7:30, I can't see what it's on.
7:36.
7:36.
I'll second it. Roll call, Chris,
Yes.
Niels,
Aye.
Chris. Aye, Matt. Okay, we're in closed session. Thank
For
you
the-
guys.
For the community and for the people here, there are no decisions, so we won't be coming back live. Jake, I like your prototypes, I'll be in touch. Okay?
Thank you.